Hello, New Zealand. Welcome to Political Playback. This is episode number 49, which would suggest that next week's going to be a big week. Might be a little bit of cake. Simon, do you think you could rustle up something? You're a bit of a chef.
Well, we could. It'd be hard for me to share it with all our viewers, not just because there's thousands of them, but also how I get the cake from here to them through the camera.
Yeah. Okay. What is your specialty cooking cake?
A chocolate cake, actually. It's not so much a cake. I mean, I can do a chocolate cake, but self-sourcing chocolate pudding is my go-to dessert.
Ooh, nice. My specialty is pancakes, mainly because it can be done on a barbecue and only involves about 4, maybe 5 ingredients if I'm generous. So anyway, kids don't seem to mind. They're used to it. All right, let's get straight into it. Lots of topics to cover today. And firstly, the video of the week. And look, it's quite breaking news. Only discovered it just today. Seemed to have gone under the radar because we were all rightly focused on the horrific assassination of Charlie Kirk in the United States. But last Friday, after a number of focus groups, advisory groups, talking to a lot of people, Chris Hipkins finally figured out what is a woman.
Chippy, what's a woman?
Ryan, I'm not getting into the culture wars that Winston Peters desperately wants. If he wants to put police on the toilets, on the doors of every public toilet, he can do that. But the reality here is I think New Zealanders want to see us focus on the big issues that affect the country.
But it's kind of, I mean, look, I agree, it's a bit of a sideshow. But can you not just say, I mean, what have you changed your opinion? What is a woman?
An adult female is a woman.
Amazing.
You have to love. Look, I'll just say it's not actually a sideshow. I mean, obviously we've got to talk about the economy, we've got to talk about education and health, but actually politics is always downwards of culture. And our politicians like Chris Hipkins, who seem to be able to opine on just about everything from climate change to treaty issues, but they can't tell you what a woman is, actually tells you all you need to know.
Yeah. Well, we got there. So now I mean, it's quite scary because, I mean, he's basically swung to the dark side as a MAGA right-wing, far-right transphobe bigot.
That's right, he's a TERF now.
That's exactly right. I mean, I hope that all the groups are going to come out and, really give him a good telling off, especially like the Human Rights Commission and the Law Commission, of course, who can't figure it out either. So, yeah, interesting. Just the image of the week is just this one from Crown Law. We didn't get the chance to talk about it last week because we were busy focused on other things, but we did make a complaint against that name suppression for a famous person who had a huge amount of highly objectionable child abuse images. We wrote to the Law Commission and said, Crown Law, and said you need to review this. Name suppression simply hides the perpetrators, and in this case, it's not protecting the victims in any way, and they've agreed. So they are appealing. So, that is a very good move. Always good to make a bit of a noise, eh?
Well, it's a part of what Family First and we do, and successfully so, actually. So it's that breadth and depth, as you know better than anyone, Bob, that Family First is involved with. And so, we do these shows, we talk into the issues, but we're quite frequently doing OIAs to ministers, trying to understand what they're up to, as you've done, writing letters. We just recently submitted a letter on puberty blockers where we kept busy. Well, that's what I'm trying to tell you that I am.
Well, you've actually jumped the gun, but why don't I just find that one and let's just explain what we did. So we sent a letter to the Associate Minister of Health, Matt Ducey, for what it's worth, basically saying why you're dragging the chain on banning puberty blockers, the CAS review, European countries, even the Ministry of Health says there's no proof of its effectiveness or safety. Why are we still experimenting on children? I mean, from your perspective and insight of how politics works, why is it taking so long? Are they trying to figure out how to mitigate the opposition that they'll get? But then again, whatever decision they get, they're going to have opposition. So maybe they should just do the right thing.
Look, I hope they do the right thing in the end. I think what's happening here is probably the officials, or many of them, are giving advice which probably is supportive of using puberty blockers. That's my sense, Bob. And so ministers are grappling with that. but ministers too will have different opinions. I'm pretty convinced,
Right.
if you listen to what Matt Ducey's said in the past, that he supports puberty blockers. So he's probably struggling with other ministers in the wider cabinet saying, well, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
So that'll be the tensions. There'll be internal tensions. There'll be tensions with their officials, and then trying to work out, okay, as you say, what's the right thing to do, but how do we present it in a way that might try to mitigate what they see as some of the damage?
I mean, we know that New Zealand First are strong on this one. They've made good statements on it. I would imagine that the Minister of Health, Simeon Brown, would be on side. Got a very good voting record. Would be one of the more conservative-friendly senior politicians in the government. I'm not sure where ACT would stand on this particular one. If you press them, they all voted for the conversion therapy law, despite the fact that it was taking away, libertarian philosophy. People can't determine their own thing. So, yeah, have we got the numbers?
I think they probably do. I assume if the government makes a decision, it'll be done in cabinet and everyone will be bound to it. I would be surprised that someone like ACT, for example, would choose to invoke its agree to disagree on this.
Right.
These are caught up in the social culture wars. So I think they'll probably try to avoid it, ACT that is. I think for someone like Simeon, the Minister of Health, he's pro-science. I mean, that's really what this comes down to. Even though we've talked about it as a cultural issue, a political issue, it's really just the science. And you touched on it. We're experimenting on children because the drugs that are being used, and you know this, Bob, they're what they call off-label. They haven't been specifically designed for this usage. They're drugs or hormones for other issues. They're now giving them to children with no evidence that they work. I mean, that is literally experimenting on kids. And somehow the government still hasn't acted against it. And there are advocates here, including in the ministry, saying, oh, it's perfectly fine. It's just actually wrong on all levels.
And Didi makes a good point. He says that Matt Ducey is from the Tavistock Institute, which of course was the one in the UK which was doing a lot of this experimentation. In fairness, Matt Ducey was not involved directly in the gender affirmation treatment, but he was working there, and he was a psychiatrist, something like that. No, he can't be a psychiatrist.
He's a counsellor. I don't think he's
okay.
Yeah, I don't think he's trained in any of that. I could be wrong on that, but that was the reason why we wrote to Matt. We copied in Simeon Brown as the minister, but Matt's been leading this and also seems to be quite resistant to the idea. Again, the science is clear. The science is clear. There is no good evidence that these hormones are working. There's actually a little bit of evidence that they're doing harm, and yet we continue to hand them over for ideological reasons. Because I can't, Bob, think of any other drug in New Zealand or around the world that we would give to people with such a lack of evidence.
Well, maybe we shouldn't go down that path. I know what everybody's thinking right now. They're thinking COVID. Yeah, but you're right. I mean,
wasn't talking vaccines.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, when you think about children as well. I mean, this is an experiment on children. It is a major problem. All right, let's get back to our topic. Seeing you totally threw me there. And let's just check out the latest polling. So basically, look, this is Radio New Zealand, and basically reckons that Labour's doing slightly better than National, Greens are doing slightly better than New Zealand First. Interesting that New Zealand First is above ACT. I still find that quite amazing. When you look at the trend, though, you find it's this dog fight at the top between Labour and National, and of course the issue will come down to, coalition partners, and we might come back to that. But there is a concern that people are concerned with the direction of the country. You can see up the top there, wrong direction has increased, right direction has decreased. And who do they blame? They blame the current government more than the Labour-led government, who had 6 years of doing this. About a quarter of us say, well, they're both to blame. And today it was announced that GDP had gone down. Before my eyes glaze over, thinking about GDP, I thought it was interesting. Nicola Willis blamed Trump, because you either blame the Russians or Trump. And if you're on the left, you blame Israel. So, it's all a blame game. But anyway, Simon, what do you think? Because at the end of the day, there's been this massive increase in butter, milk, cheese, and families are finding going to the supermarket pretty stressful, and it seems like, based on this information here, that we're blaming the current government. That's not good for National, is it?
No, it's a major problem. And if an election was to be held tomorrow, the coalition government would be in some serious trouble. Granted, there's a year to go. We've still got to go through a summer, literal summer at the moment. It's cold, wet, miserable. Yeah. Believe it or not, that does have an effect. Look, I don't think there's an easy answer to this. It's sort of yes to everything you said. I mean, from my perspective, the previous government, Labour, set things up in such a way that have been incredibly destructive to our economy. And the current government inherited that. But I think with the average voter, they're prepared to give a new government a bit of a honeymoon, a bit of time where blaming the old guard makes sense. But we're now 2 years in, so it's not surprising to me that voters are, if you will, forgotten what Labour did and now are putting it fair and square in the government's hands. And they sort of haven't completely helped themselves, as in the government of the day, Bob, because they talked a big game. And it's not being delivered. And as you say, people are shopping, they find things really expensive. And the GDP side, again, that's just another kick in the guts. That's the economy contracting. It means we're not selling or exporting as much. We're not receiving as much money. And final thought, if I might, is ultimately, I don't see how we can blame Trump's tariffs, because the 15% tariff that's hit only started in August. Here in New Zealand.
I was just going to ask you about that, actually. I thought that's really clutching at straws if you're blaming Trump for something so recent when we've been going on this downhill slide for quite a while.
Well, it's that, of course, Trump's put tariffs on every country. So New Zealand's not unique in this. In fact, we have a lesser tariff rate than many, slightly higher than some, but I think it's just a bit too simplistic. It certainly will be part of it. What we can see if you go in behind the numbers to send our viewers to sleep is that we're getting good export prices for things like our lamb and dairy, but we're just not exporting as much of it. So, that's having an impact. And again, it just all flows through to a lack of confidence in our economy. You talk to the business owners, they're not happy. You talk to consumers, they're not happy. It's messy. The government's got a bit of time to try and turn it around. Otherwise, they're in big trouble politically.
Okay, well, the political left have always talked about capital gains tax, and it's always been perceived to be off the agenda. In fact, I think when Chippy first came in as leader after Jacinda Ardern, Hipkins said capital gains tax is off the table. I think, was it capital gains or was it the asset? Yeah, it was capital gains tax, I think. And so they polled on this in this latest one, and you'll note that there's two categories. So it's whether when you sell the home, whether you're pinged for making a profit on the family home. If a capital gains tax excludes the family home, then 42% support. The others either oppose or don't know. But if it includes the family home, it's just a no-go. So any government that included a capital gains tax, including the family home, I don't think Labour was planning on including the family home. I think probably the Greens and Pāti Māori would. That's just my view of how they would look at it. Do you think there's enough mandate there for Labour to, if Labour's looking at that polling and thinking, should we have a capital gains tax? I don't know if they've got the support to get that through, have they?
No, I don't think so. It was a hard sell for Labour last time, and I think it will remain a hard sell because, of course, the centre-right parties will begin pointing out all the problems with it. And to lay my cards on the table, Bob, which is probably not a surprise, I think capital gains tax is a terrible idea. I don't think it actually will generate the monies which they think. In fact, you don't need to believe me. The various experts that have run the numbers said it doesn't bring in a huge amount of cash. And look, you need a bureaucracy to run this. What is and is not the family home, homes that are outside of the family home per se, then you've got to keep a list of everything that you've done to it to show the improvements and the value changes. This is a highly bureaucratic, overly regulated space. And the other thing people should just quickly note, if it's to succeed, it needs to be comprehensive. because what will happen is smart people will go, fine, I won't invest in housing, I will invest in art and shares and all other sorts of capital gaining dynamics. And so the money will just move elsewhere. So yeah, bad idea. And as you noted, it's not quite popular enough for Labour to hang its hat on yet.
Yeah. When you were campaigning at the last election, what was the key argument that you felt hit home that really made capital gains tax unpopular, even to people on the left?
Well, ultimately, it's that their assets, particularly their homes where they've invested, and a lot of mums and dads for their retirement have got their home and then maybe a little granny flat or something. They're going to lose a good chunk of their money. And they already felt, to be honest, Bob, they're paying enough tax already. Right. You pay your income tax, you're paying your GST. Every time you fuel up the car, you're paying tax left, right, and centre. And now it's another one. And I think that's probably what resonated the most, was another tax. And as I say, it's not actually generating all that much money, but it will generate a large bureaucracy to run it.
Okay, so eyes may be glazing over right now and you're wondering what we're talking about, economics. Don't panic, because the good news is that the Greens know what they're doing. And one of their more famous Green MPs, Tamitha Paul, the one who wants to defund the police and also wants to not send people to prison and doesn't want police walking the beat around the streets because it makes the criminals feel unsafe, she's come up with a perfect economic policy, which she posted. I don't know why she posted it, because it just means that we can pick it up. But here's what she said.
I am not afraid to admit that I used to be scared to talk about the economy. Mostly because I thought it was boring, but also because I told myself, I'm a words person, not a numbers person. But you know what I've realised in my ripe old age of 28 is that you don't need to be an economist or a finance expert or even a rocket scientist to know that an economy is basically people that make things, people that sell things, and people that buy things. But I think people try to make the economy more complicated than it really is because people in power don't want you to have an opinion on it. If the economy was a car and the government was at the wheel, that car has crashed. It has swerved on some black ice, it has tumbled and rolled, it has flipped down the side of a bank, the car has caught on fire. And there's lots of ways to crash a car, but one really obvious way that you can crash a car is taking your hands off the wheel. And there is no better example of taking your hands off the wheel than the slow burning death of our industrial towns.
So that's it. That's solved. I mean, her leader, co-leader, Chloe Schwarbrick, wants to be the Minister of Finance if Labor win the election. I mean, is that going to reach anybody, Simon? You were saying that you think, oh no, that might be good messaging and young people will warm to that.
Some young ones will. They're attracted to that TikTok dynamic and the simplicity of the messages. So overall, it won't. I mean, it's barking mad. The economy is more than simply people making things and people selling things. Our whole entire financial sector is not a buying and selling dynamic per se. So look, she's completely off the reservation. Yes, it will influence a few young ones who like what they think is her energy and I'm trying to think even the right words, Bob. They just like her style and they like the simplicity of the message. Of course, the economy would be a train wreck under them. I mean, the video goes on, and we don't need to go into it in depth, but she says basically that all our industries have closed down, and we just need to make everything here in New Zealand. But of course, I have no doubt that she and all her friends are using Temu all the time for cheap goods and don't want to pay 100 times the price for things here in New Zealand.
Yeah, okay. I thought you had to be bright to get in to be a politician, but yeah, the more I'm learning. No slight on you, of course, Simon, although I think your IQ may have increased since you left Parliament. So just speaking of that, Benjamin Doyle is leaving Parliament today, his final speech. And of course, the whole focus will be on the fact that he received emails calling out his behaviour and his posts I actually did an Official Information Act request, which the police sent back very early, didn't wait the 20 days. And what it found was that actually there's been almost 10,000 complaints made in the last 10 years, which sort of puts it into perspective. And yeah, only 15% of them are actually proceeded with, 76% aren't, 14%. And of that, 7% of all complaints, there's actually proved to be criminal activity. So it sort of puts it all in perspective, because that'll be the narrative we hear from this final speech. That's what the media will be all over. It's nothing to do with his postings, his background, his views on puberty blockers for all, a radical RSE in schools. It's just the fact that some people emailed him, and maybe some of them were objectionable, and the police can deal with them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things to unpick there. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm actually not sure why he's giving a final speech, or as they call it, a valedictory. And I mean, he's entitled to one, but he's barely put his feet under the desk of Parliament, and now he's leaving. I personally don't see the logic of it. That's just me, and I'm not arguing there should be a rule, because, as I say, he's entitled to give a speech. But really, the man barely turned up to Parliament, and now we have to be lectured by him 15 minutes to the end. Yep, he will just play a victim card and narrative. It's what he and his supporters trade on. You just showed Tamitha Paul's TikTok video. She has no idea about the economy. This guy has no understanding, by the look of it, from his behaviour and what he's been posting around the real care of children. The Green Party in general have no idea. So they trade on being victims. So I'm glad you did that, OIA. Look, the Harmful Digital Communications Act, to me, is a bit of a concern. Not actually a great supporter of it. It gets misused by people. I've been working with a journalist, actually, who's been targeted by a CCP thug, of all things, Bob, trying to silence her through the act. Didn't succeed. But yeah, good to see that, yeah, his claims, he's just one of almost 10,000 complaints.
Yep. And somebody has asked, who started the name Bussy? That was actually the name he gave himself. That was his persona online. Yeah.
Portmanteau.
Indeed, he says, Parliament is fast becoming one flew over the cuckoo's nest. You're being mean there. Right. Now, yeah, let's move on. Just an interesting aspect of the poll that was asked. So it was asked, of course, preferred Prime Minister. On this particular one, Hipkins is in the lead over Luxon. There's Luxon around the 20% mark, which I always told you, Simon, he will never variate much from 20%. It's going to be stuck there. It doesn't matter, because that's where he was close to the last election. But here's the interesting thing. They also asked, if you get rid of either Hipkins or Luxon, who would replace them? So let's look at Luxon first. And 40%, about 40% didn't know. You got the national supporters on the right. It's interesting just to compare. Erica Stanford is the next taxi cab off the rank, followed by Nicola Willis and Chris Bishop. I'm a bit gutted that Simeon Brown's not there, even Mark Mitchell. Would you put Erica Stanford first on that ranking? Think she deserves that?
In terms of the current manoeuvring, yes. I mean, we've had weeks and months of speculation around her. Obviously, lots of her announcements and interviews, and lots of, I would argue, stories seeded into the media to raise her profile and the possibility of her being a leader. And then you saw, it was about a month ago, or maybe just a bit shorter, Nicola Willis, that famous, if you will, or politically famous, taking over the Prime Minister's podium and so forth. So there's jostling happening. It's very evident. So that's just raising their profile. And someone like Chris is probably, as in Bishop, is probably the opposite. He's running about one of the busiest ministers alongside Simeon Brown, and so hasn't really been manoeuvring his profile. And the other very, very quick thing, Bob, and you know it with polls, who they choose to ask about or who they choose to include or not. In other words, there could be other names of the caucus, but they've just decided not to publicise them.
Yep. Hayden says, might be time to ban all opinion polls, as polls mean nothing. The fact of the matter is that if you look back, and I keep telling people this, I know it's a common phrase that people say this, but if you look back at the polls leading into the last election, some of them were very close, some closer than others, but they certainly indicated what the outcome was going to be. The polling that we've done on, for example, the social issues, even when we were going into the anti-smacking referendum way back in 2009, the cannabis referendum, they were all pretty accurate. So I think we do have to take a little bit of notice of them. Edmund says she is a train wreck. Who's she referring to? Probably Tamitha Paul, I think that is. Ben says Simeon Brown would have got a few votes, maybe not the percentage that is needed. And so let's just look at the second category, and that is who would replace Hipkins. A lot more people didn't know, which I think is interesting. So 40% of people didn't know who to replace Luxon with. 60% can't see an option for Hipkins, which is good for Hipkins, of course, but it's bad for the Labour Party because they don't see an immediate successor. But there we are. There's three names that, well, you've heard of one of them. Kieran McNulty. Who is Kieran McNulty? One. Carmel Sepuloni. Well, she's a deputy leader, so that's the only reason people see her. And the fact that Willie Jackson is on that list is, downright scary. Any surprises there for you? Do you think Kieran McNulty is the next cab off the rank for Labour?
I genuinely don't know. I mean, he's often touted within political circles. He certainly thinks he could be and wants to be, despite his protestations otherwise. But as we've talked before, there really isn't a depth of talent there, which is why almost 60%, even of Labour supporters, don't know who. And, you'd have to say the opposition is not shining at the moment. And part of it is that small target approach that they've taken. They are sort of letting the government make its own mistakes rather than trying to stir things too much.
Yeah.
But, interestingly, like Barbara Edmonds is not mentioned. She's their finance spokesperson. And the other observation is you had the earlier ones of National. I will bet bottom dollar there'll be National MPs who polled higher than 0.9%. There'll be National MPs who came in at 3%, 2%, 1%. And notice, of course, how the media have chosen not to include them, but they did include Willie Jackson. So it's just a lesson to people to, again, we talk about this a lot on Daybreak and Political Playback, Solid Ground, of how the media curates or choreographs what you do get to see.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to see if I can put this up on screen, but I don't think it's going to fit. No, it's too small. It's a real shame. Ivor Jones, the Maori Green Lantern, has written a piece, and the reason I wanted to put it up there just to show that we're into free speech, even if it's dumb. And it's the thing I've posted is exposing family first New Zealand colonial apologists masquerading as family values. And apparently it's just to advance white supremacist ideologies and undermine tangata whenua and colonial attitudes. Yeah. Anyway, we just put that up there just to say that we're into free speech here, even dumb things. You have the right to say dumb things here at Family First. Right, let's move on and to Pāti Māori. So takata whereas is, do you know what that is? It's my Māori language week, Simon. So Te Pāti Māori's ānini, is it how you say it? Do you know what that is?
Nini, God, you put me on the spot, and I even did Mara at university. You put me on the spot too quickly. So no, here's your moment of glory.
Headache. I had to Google it, by the way, because Te Pāti Māori's headache. So there we are. And the headache is this. They've got a Takata Ferris who posted this. He didn't like the fact that non-Māori were campaigning for a Māori MP. Go figure. And so he sort of got in trouble for it, and they apologised on his behalf. But then the Te Pāti Māori president, which is Willie Jackson, the godfather of Te Pāti Māori, ex-Labour cabinet minister, said no, actually what he said is right. And then even the infamous Labour Willie Jackson said, no, he's got some good points. Interestingly, though, left-wing spin-off said that, no, there's been damage done by Takata Ferris's statement about the Post. Just before you comment, just to put it in context so people know exactly what he said, this is what he said. And I've also put up the image of the that offended everybody.
And it had in it members of the black community, the Indian community, the Asian community, and the Pākehā community, all campaigning for Penny. Now, when I saw it, I'm just like, man, this thing just blows my mind. And that's what my post said. This just blows my mind, that they've got all these ethnic people in this post campaigning in a by-election for a Maori seat. So you got all these other ethnicities campaigning for Labour to take a Maori seat from the Maori people. And straight up e te iwi, that should be unacceptable to us.
So if you vote for a Māori like Pene Henare from Labour, you're taking a Māori seat from the Māori. Boy, Labour must be panicking about where Te Pāti Māori is at.
Yeah, I mean, before I come to the Labour side, because you're right, they will be panicking, they will be struggling with the decision. But, you can sort of be somewhat grateful to Takata Ferris and John Tamahiri and the wider Māori Party, because they're actually, I think I wrote about it recently, that the mask is falling off. These guys are ethno-nationalists and deep racists. They are explicitly saying that they should have a privileged position, in this case because they're Māori, and everyone else should be excluded. I mean, that is not, that's the mindset of hundreds of years ago, and not just here in New Zealand, but around the world, where we retreated into little tribal groups. We now live in a modern liberal democracy where actually people of different cultures and traditions can work together. And so the mask is falling off. Ironically, from a party that talks a big game about the Treaty of Waitangi and how it's all about partnership. I mean, really what the Māori Party are doing is giving New Zealanders a giant middle finger. So, yeah, and I see that comment from Dennis, right on the money there. And, Simply Green's probably got the reverse point, which, are Māori banned from helping in the general seats? I mean, it's just absurd, Bob. But you're right. For Labour, this is a problem. Labour will need the Māori Party to form government more likely than not. But to tie themselves to the Māori Party, to not rule them out, will put off a lot of Kiwis who go, we don't want these racist radicals anywhere near the Treasury or government benches.
Okay, and I think in the notes that you sent through originally, that he was being sent off to, what is it, tikanga restoration? What is that?
Yeah, to be honest, who knows? It's probably just a giant talk fest. I mean, this is part of the problem at times with, again, the Māori Party, but also the Greens. They talk about, we're off to this, we're off to that, tikanga that, restoration this. What is it? No one really knows. But the other thing through it all is clearly tensions between a number of the MPs within the Māori Party, between the leadership and others. But we shouldn't be surprised. The Māori Party is a radical group. And just because they're a group doesn't mean they're coherent or cohesive. They'll be infighting radically against each other. So in some ways I find it quite amusing, but it's very telling. This is I just keep saying, a very deeply radical group of people. And, at one level, we can be pleased that the mask, as I say, is falling off. Yeah.
Okay, let's just move on. I guess we're just linking back to the concerns that we spent a lot of time talking last week on Political Playback, and that's just around political violence. Interestingly enough, there was an example of that over the weekend where a local candidate standing for ACT, his hoarding was shot at, but not the first time. And I think what was concerning was the political discourse around this whole, both in the media, but also by people around this tragic shooting of someone simply for the views they held. There were some consequences. The Simplicity boss faced a lot of backlash because of what he wrote, hoped that his ideals had died with him. He did step them back in well, did he apologise? He semi-apologised. I think he sort of did, but you know, unfortunately, as soon as you post something like this, what's the phrase? The internet is forever, and you can always use Wayback Machine, so it's always going to be there. And the media were working overtime. The Herald, I mean, Simon Wilson, the Marxist, resident Marxist at the New Zealand Herald, you know, said that basically you should only live if you agree with what Simon Wilson says. It's almost what he said. There was this article that I called out, where apparently the suspect was speaking the language of the far right, even though he was an LGBT, dating a furry, anti-fascist, anti-Trump, he was leftist ideology all over, but this is what the New Zealand Herald was trying to argue. And then they did an article with sociologist left-wing Paul Spoonley, who I used to have a lot of time and respect for, to be honest, because he did a lot of around population and fertility rates and all that type of stuff. But he has really gone leftist in a lot of this, and said that all the radicalisation was 70% of it was coming from the right, despite the fact that it's actually the growth of leftist violence that's the problem. I mean, what do you make of all this, Simon, just in terms of political discourse in New Zealand and whether it's going to get worse or better?
I think unfortunately it is going to get worse. I think, you know, New Zealand often lags behind the likes of the UK, America, in these regards. So, you know, putting it in a strangely positive phrasing, you know, we can only look at the likes of America and see where we're headed. In other words, they're giving us a warning. You know, billboards or hoardings being shot is not new, but, you know, the fact that it was done around the time into the Charlie Kirk shooting just sort of, you know, emphasizes things. And I'm sure ACT was happy to jump on it. I noticed actually it's a candidate up over my hometown way of Whangarei. But yeah, it's not acceptable. You know, we see a lot of vandalism of signs. We see lots of protest, vitriol and vile being thrown at politicians now. It's not helpful at all. One of the things, you know, in all those articles that the left, the liberal media are trying to outdo themselves to shape the narrative, to, you know, effectively lie to people. I mean, you couldn't at this point, from what we know of the shooter, it's pretty clear, you know, it's pretty clear his motivations, including his text to his boyfriend, which I notice now the media are just reporting as his partner. Again, a deliberate obfuscation. But, you know, if we don't talk about these things openly and honestly, there is no way we're going to improve things at all. And Paul Spoonley's just wrong. He's just beating the same narrative. You know, there's a semblance of truth. The left are not alone in this violence. The far right are there as well. But we definitely have here in New Zealand and in the United States a problem with a radicalizing left.
Yep. Just further to that, and a lot of people may not be aware of this, just to show how far off the plantation field the New Zealand Herald was, when they actually laid the charges against the shooter, it was clear it was ideology. This is what the Attorney General said.
Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, Robinson had become more political and had started to lean more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented. She stated that Robinson began to date his roommate, a biological male who was transitioning genders. This resulted in several discussions with family members, but especially between Robinson and his father, who have very different political views. In one conversation before the shooting, Robinson mentioned that Charlie Kirk would be holding an event at UVU, which Robinson said was a stupid venue for the event. Robinson accused Kirk of spreading hate.
Yeah, so I mean, for the Herald to say this, it's just, it just makes them lose credibility, doesn't it?
Well, what credibility they've got left. I mean, this is really, it's just absurd. And we've seen this in a number of different ways where people are being told that up is down and black is white. And now we're being told that someone who's very clearly motivated by, woke issues is somehow far right. It's just absolutely stupid. And what they seem to be hanging their hat on, or trying to hang the hat on, is that he comes from the predominantly Mormon state of Utah, and that he plays computer games. And somehow that's the reason why. It's like, well, read the texts between his boyfriend and himself. Obviously, the indictment that Attorney General's just read out, and much, much more. Even the shell casings that were etched on the message, you couldn't make it clearer.
No. So just back to that question about how dangerous do you think it is in New Zealand? I mean, in your 12 years, did you see it getting hotter? Were you more aware of just basic safety things, even at your electorate office? I mean, I know Parliament would be locked down securely, but your electorate office is in a residential area. Did you take more precautions as time progressed?
Yeah, we did. And part of it was driven by parliamentary security, who themselves felt that the situation was getting hotter and more serious. And not just for me, by the way, but for MPs in general. So when I first started in Parliament, Bob, it was just an office. But then we had to get special locking doors and holding areas. So if you came into the office, you were in a holding area, a pen, for want of a better term. So you couldn't just immediately get to staff. Various panic alarms, panic rooms. It sort of got crazy. And then even your own personal security. It certainly was getting more and more challenging. But I will say from my side, that never put me off engaging with the public. But, I could see if the trajectory continues, we're in trouble. I mean, already ministers now need police security, not all the time. But in the past, it was only the Prime Minister. Yeah. Now it's getting harder for government ministers to appear in places without threats. And I'm sure it's affecting some of the MPs too. Yeah,
I remember that when we had John Key come to our forum on the family and Phil Goff separately. The police cased the place for John Key, had to give them a list of every attendee. Phil Goff just rocked up. You would have been in a parliamentary car, I'm sure, but yeah, it was quite different. So just a couple of comments. Jason says, yes, we are your only source of truth and the media follow close behind. Didi says, acclimating us for it to be normal because we are so hateful. Jackie says, did they not listen to that video properly? No, they don't. They just press it. Autos Organic says, New Zealand Herald has no credibility. That's why they're failing, constantly dropping their subscription price to try and get customers. Yeah. So, okay, let's move on. And we did the puberty blockers one, didn't we? So let's just move on to the. No,
I've thrown your number.
You've absolutely thrown me. That's okay. We're getting through the list quicker. Look, I want to look at this poll because this is an interesting little bit of media training just before we comment on it. So the Radio New Zealand poll said more than 40% of people want New Zealand to recognise Palestine. So I did a little bit of butchered artwork, just myself, and you can tell, and I just changed it to what they also could have put as the heading. Radio New Zealand poll shows almost 60% aren't that keen on a Palestinian state. So when you put them side by side, hope you like that, what it shows is that a heading by the media can really push a certain narrative. The narrative is, their narrative was, well, people want a Palestinian state, the government better do it. But when you actually look at the voting, you actually find out people either aren't keen, say no, or they're not sure. So it's very different. And that's a really important thing to because a lot of people won't get past that heading. I did a session on this with Brendan Malone, actually, where we looked at the heading is often all people read and then develop an opinion as a result of that. And this is a perfect example of how the media can spin certain things. It was the same actually with the graph that I showed on the capital gains tax. Where is that graphic? I was listening to the radio, and what did they say? That was something like there is more support for a capital gains tax. Well, yeah, there's more support it than oppose it, but the support is still just 42%. So it's, yeah. Anyway, that's our media training for today.
But I think this is something that, we talk about a lot at Family First, and I think it's so important, is to realize that the media is trying to manipulate people's perceptions on issues. So this one here is a classic case in point. Why did they choose to run the lower number? It's because in this case, the writers or the editorial staff at the Radio New Zealand, Red Radio, is keen on a Palestinian state. Why did the New Zealand Herald run the stories that you shared earlier around the Charlie Kirk assassination? They're trying to run a narrative. Why did the New Zealand Herald's Twitter or X feed burst back into life on Saturday to only promote the Palestinian protest? And, you're quite right too, Bob. And there's good research on this now that, again, this TikTok generation, as we, and I suppose even old people like myself, we're scrolling through our social media. You only often do catch the headline. And so it's so vitally important to have that balance. But of course, the opposite is happening. And I might just add the final writer. I mean, my views on this are very clear, but isn't it remarkable that after all the effort, all the promotion of the Hamas or Palestinian cause and statehood, it's still only 40%, almost daily wall-to-wall coverage.
Yeah, no, quite incredible. I just did have a text saying that apparently Benjamin Doyle is doing his farewell speech in Parliament and the two Green co-leaders are not even present, which I think actually is quite interesting. Would you expect, when you did your, oh no, you didn't do a farewell speech, did you?
That was one I didn't have to bother about.
Yeah, oh, that's good. Would you expect your leaders to be there? I would have thought they would be. Maybe not.
Yeah, sorry, bad sentence from me. The answer is yes. Yes, you would expect your party leaders to be there. When I was in Parliament, even in government, if there was a valedictory from a national MP, the expectation was and would be fulfilled most of the time as the likes of John Key or Bill English would be there. In fact, you attend as many valedictories as you can, including of your colleagues from the other side, particularly Labour colleagues. Speaking personally, that the more minor the party, the less, pressure I felt or expectation within self to turn up. Like I wouldn't have bothered to turn up to a Green valedictory. I'd be more likely to turn up to a Labour party. It's just a proportionality question. But your party leader would traditionally be there. And the only time someone like John Key wasn't was because of a significant other event, often overseas, and then the deputy leader would be there. So that's quite significant, Bob, that they're not, and it adds a bit of fuel to the fire that this wasn't so much him just deciding that it was time to go. There might have been a bit more of a push.
Okay, well, there's some breaking news that you get live here on Political Playback. This is the place to get it all. Just in terms of the Palestinian thing, I mean, this was one of the objectionable placards held. I mean, the organisers should have told him to put that away. That's just disgraceful.
They agree with it. The organisers will agree with it. And the other sentiments that were being expressed. I mean, this is sort of one of the same group. The Palestinian marches often have very little to do with Palestine. This is the usual mix of communists and socialists and Marxists and anarchists and climate change people, and they all just the same group, just different flags at the moment.
Sorry, I just have to put this one up. Dennis says Chloe wouldn't be there. She's busy working through the GDP figures.
Oh, that's gold. Good on Dennis. That's gold.
Yeah. Well done, Dennis. That's the text of the week. And Rosie said, was Jacinda in the house when Kerry Allen did her farewell speech? You probably weren't there to know.
Well, I think Jacinda had left already. To be fair on that one, it would have been Chris Hipkins at the time, and that would be also slightly exceptional as well. But no, Jacinda had left Parliament by then.
Okay, and according to Sue, we were 50% right. Marama is there, but Chloe is not, which is a bit rude. Hope she's got a good
Are we talking
excuse night.
Are we talking the sort of there mentally, or are we talking the there
For the
actually in the house?
Oh, yeah. That might be it. We'll wait for confirmation on that. Just quickly, I thought David Seymour, credit where credit is due. David Seymour made some very good comments around Palestine recognition, talked about the H word, hostages, and the other H word, of course, is Hamas. Oh, he's got the two H words, so he's doing very well. And he's sort of got in a little bit of trouble because Winston Peters told him off for talking out of his field. You've done the foreign relationships thing. Is Winston right, or has David got every right to comment?
David has every right to comment. Just because you have someone who's the Minister of Foreign Affairs, in this case Winston, doesn't preclude everyone else from having an opinion. And at the end of the day, David is the Deputy Prime Minister. He's also the leader of the ACT Party, and he's the MP for Epsom. So he's actually allowed to have his say. Where it would cross the line, and it has not in this case, is when he's formally speaking on behalf of the government. So was it a couple of months ago he fired off a letter to the UN having a crack at them on something, and I can't remember what it was. That's crossing the line because there are protocols there.
Yeah.
So that crossed the line, but not him voicing an opinion. But this is the tension between David and Winston. They don't like each other, and they're jostling. They're jostling.
Okay. I'm looking at the live feed and I can't see her. They're all wearing their tea towels though, so that's good. The dishes will get done.
Do the dishes afterwards.
Yeah. Was there anything else I needed to comment on that? Oh, I actually did just want to comment on those church leaders locked outside Willis's office. Which, I mean, before you comment, let me just say, Marama is there. I can see her, but Chloe is not. And the Maori Party are totally absent. Just the one, Debbie Rauri Waititi. So, gee, kind of a lack of it. Actually, can you just tell us, Thursday night for Parliament, let's just get off that for a sec. Thursday night for Parliament, a lot of MPs are shot through, haven't they?
Not really. Some will have left, but not many. We still have to keep people in Parliament. A lot will be up in their offices, getting ready to go at 6 o'clock. So they're there, but they don't need. If they don't need to be in the chamber, they'll be doing their last little jobs, taking their last phone calls, last talk with their staff, packing their bags, and ready to make a run for it at 6. Because I think if it's still the same, there'll be a 6:45 flight to Auckland, and it takes about almost 30 minutes to get to the airport. So I'm not being silly. As soon as those bells go, the MPs are out that door to try and get to that flight, like myself, so you could get back home to see your family. So they're there, but, I said it at the start around the Benjamin Doyle stuff. He's barely turned up to Parliament. He's barely been there. So there's no real need, even without his scandals, for MPs to be there. If it was someone who'd been there a long time, you would actually make the effort and you'd see more. But again, the man's barely been there.
Okay. Here's a question for you. Were you there for Jacinda's valedictory?
I actually can't remember.
I should have reminded you.
There's a small part of me thinks I might have been away at the time, actually.
Okay, good excuse. Okay, let's just get back to the issue of church leaders protesting about this issue. I mean, for me, I would just say, hey, look, if they're community religious leaders and they're speaking up about political issues, well and good. They're entitled to hold their view and they're good on them for protesting. I mean, it's interesting from a family first perspective because we've always sort of been told by a lot of church leaders, stay out of politics, don't be so political. It's not very nice, but it seems okay that on certain issues and issues like climate justice, economic justice and treaty justice, it's all okay. So anyway, any thoughts on that one?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, they're welcome to protest. I personally find it a bit absurd. I mean, they're now defecating in their nappies because they've chained themselves. I don't think that's particularly endearing.
Nice to think about.
Yeah, there's a nice image to lead us into the Thursday evening. But, it's just, for me, I don't think it's a particularly constructive look. I can't speak for Nicola Willis, but I don't think this will impact her at all. In fact, it's likely to have the opposite effect. But I just go, where were these clerics on October 7th? Of course, they were absent. I could be wrong, but I don't recognise any of those faces. Never seen them at any of the pro-life rallies, the March for Life, presenting to select committees around drug reform or euthanasia. As you mentioned yourself, Bob, they're very happy to talk the woke issues, the acceptable issues, but they're actually not there preaching the gospel in the wider and more traditional sense.
Well, I actually did go and check, and this was their first post 2 days after the attack on Israel, and it was about climate justice. And in fact, they never bothered to talk about it until February. I did a little bit of homework just to see whether it seems to be the topic du jour. Like I say, they're welcome to protest. Just don't then have a go at us for being political and speaking up for the unborn child and for traditional marriage and being created as male and female. Look, we are just about out of time. Just two quick notices. As you finish every class with a few quick notices, or church with a few quick notices before morning cup of tea. Actually, this is wrong. It's now 325,000 views. I got an update from Ken just before we came on air. So more than 300,000 have watched this interview. Amazing feedback. And what's been most amazing, but probably galling, Simon, is that the media couldn't get enough of putting the knife into Israel Folau at the time. But now they've run for the hills. And speaks for itself, doesn't it?
Oh, totally. But it also shows the work that you're leading. I mean, amazing that you got this interview, their first and exclusive interview, and it was with you. And the fact is, we can go as we are around mainstream media, and 320 plus thousand people in 72 hours have seen it. That will only grow. And the analogy is the Sam Stubbs tweet, which media ignored until so many people were talking about it that forced their hand. So let's see. Maybe media will eventually get to it.
Okay, one other very exciting announcement is that next week is our 50th episode, and as a special celebration, Simon has booted me out the door, told me to go overseas, and it's going to be Tanya Unkovic who's going to be the guest panelist. So there we are. There's something nice to look forward to next Thursday night. 50th episode, hard to believe, and we haven't been cancelled yet. We deserve it, but anyway.
Also, I think it's very flattering of our design team to put me at the same height of Tanya. I'm normally looking up to her.
I thought that was the high heels, not yours. Right, okay. We are out of time. Thank you, Simon, and thank you for watching, everybody. Been a great night. We'll let you get going, and have a great night.